Royal personnel issue.
Your Honour, could I just inform you that we've had a fruitful discussion with my learned friend, your counsel assistant, Dr. Kumanjayi, about the request for the documents that my client was said to have been considering during the course of his, at least part of his evidence on Monday. I'm hopeful we'll be able to resolve this. We can't do anything by 2 o'clock today though, and we'll need we'll need to get out of this hearing and do something overnight.
Sure.
And come back tomorrow morning.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Abbott. That's not a problem. Yes, Mr. Mullins.
Thank you, Your Honour. Mr. Rolfe, you gave some evidence just before lunch, and I obviously didn't write it down because I was asking the questions, but you gave some evidence about the fact, or the extent of your knowledge of the family's negotiations to hand Kumanjayi in as at 5 December 2019. Can you remember that?
Yes.
And did you say you had no knowledge that there had been negotiations with the family?
I said I believe that's the case, yes.
No, just have a look at, you still have the document in front of you, which was the one that I gave you, 20-73, was it? Exhibit 20-73, yes. Page 17.
What question number?
What question?
Question 91.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Third line down, you say, the first I was aware of the negotiations to allow him to attend the funeral, which was over by the time we got there, was from the press conference by Commander White after the event, and I had not heard of those negotiations. When was the press? Is that correct?
I stand corrected by memory. I accept this evidence, yes.
And so you did know at the time that you gave the interview on 5 December 2019 that there had been negotiations with the family for the return of Kumanjayi.
As per this, which I'm going to rely on because it was a lot closer to the event, I knew that the police had started negotiating with his family.
All right. Now, I'm going to move to a different topic now, so I don't want to confuse you. So I'm going now to House 511. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but can I just ask you a few questions associated with that?
Yes.
Before you and Constable Ebel walked through the door into the house, you knew that someone was in there?
Yes.
And you knew it might have been Kumanjayi?
Yes.
And you knew that historically he had used a weapon against police?
Yes.
And you knew that he was likely to resist arrest?
No.
Can you look at, may the witness please see, it's the same document, but question 92. Do you have question 92 in front of you?
Yes.
The answer to question 92 is you were asked about what you'd heard, and from watching the body-worn video footage of the incident on November 9, that's obviously an error because it's November 6 was the axe incident. All I'd really heard about him, that he was a property offender, break-ins. As he got older, he became more and more violent, and I was informed that he would not be arrested without a fight, without assaulting police. Who informed you of that?
That must have come, and again, I cannot recall. I make an assumption that would be from the Unimove police officers, one of them.
Yes, well, you knew you were of the view that he was an extremely violent offender, that's correct?
Correct.
You knew that he was willing to use weapons against police?
Correct.
You knew that he would not be arrested, or you had been informed according to that answer that you gave, that he would not be arrested without a fight.
Correct. I'd been informed of that, but I was aware of his criminal history and the number of times that he had been arrested, and I believe he'd only been arrested for assault police once. So the information I received there doesn't match up with the evidence.
So did you make a decision at the relevant time that you did not think he would put up a fight?
No. I have to judge every situation in front of me as it occurs.
Did you know anything of his mental health, Kumanjayi Walker's mental health?
I don't believe so.
Did you know anything of his what he might have been through when he went through Dondale prison?
I don't believe so.
What was your plan to manage the risk of violent confrontation?
I would, in a situation that I was in, fall back on my training.
And did you discuss that with Constable Ebel?
It was not required.
You understood that you were walking into a house in a small community surrounded by women and children?
There were some women and children there, yes.
Why didn't you stop at the house and make a plan like you did when you attended Walbury Camp on 7 November 2019?
What we did at Yuendamu House 511 and Walbury was the exact same plan. The difference was in the situation that occurred being that the front door was open and someone was inside. We set up a loose cordon and approached the front door and looked for intel. So it is the same plan as Walbury, and it was discussed at the house previous.
All right. Now, when you went in to House 511 and you confronted Kumanjayi, we don't have to play the video again, you're familiar with that.
Yes.
And you wound up in a position where you had your right hand on his chest, that's right?
Yes.
And you wanted to check his identity with the phone that was in your left hand.
Yes.
So whilst holding his right hand on your chest, you held the phone up and checked that he was the right person?
I believe, yeah, I accept that.
And then you identified him by reference to the fold in the ear. Is that
Correct.
right? Once you had identified him, you pulled the phone away.
Correct.
Now, there was then a moment or two where you put your telephone in your pocket. That's right.
Yes.
And then you said to him, words to the effect of, turn around, put your arms behind your back, etc.
Correct.
When you identified him and you realised he was this extremely violent offender who may resist arrest and go without a fight, why didn't you step back?
I was attempting to place him under arrest in the most respectful and kind and most polite way that I could.
So you're saying that you were doing what you're doing, that is, keeping hands on him. Is that called hands-on when you got your hand on his chest?
I don't think that's classified as what usually the police would refer to as hands-on.
You hadn't checked in his pockets?
No, we would generally check pockets after handcuffs are applied.
You knew he was likely to ignite and resist at any point in time?
That probably goes further into what I knew than what I did.
But you didn't think it was appropriate to step back and allow him space and allow yourself space?
No, you obviously saw what I did and I thought that was appropriate at the time.
All right. Now, after the shooting, you successfully removed the scissors from his hand.
Correct.
You handcuffed him.
Correct.
And then the next thing you considered was first aid.
Correct.
In the ordinary course, the first call would have been 000, or whatever the number is in the Northern Territory.
We would use our radios.
Radios? Okay. But
they're connected to that call centre.
So you would have called emergency help?
And that's what occurred. You can hear that on the body worn, I believe Constable Kirstenfeld says, into radio shots fired.
And was an ambulance actually called?
Yes.
Okay. Did you attempt to stabilise him at all where he was shot?
I attempted to stabilise him for, I believe, 60 minutes.
You decided you needed to get out of there as soon as possible.
Correct.
There was a commotion outside.
Correct.
You could hear the wailing.
Correct.
You could hear people crying out.
Correct.
And you felt you needed to get out of there as soon as you could because you were frightened.
I believed that it was an unsafe place for us to provide medical care. In addition, there would be more medical supplies elsewhere.
When you say it was an unsafe place for you to provide medical care, why was that?
Just for the fact that there are multiple people, and as I said in that answer, emotions were high, and from the reaction that we could hear already with the community members coming towards us.
Were you frightened of being assaulted?
I believe that was a risk.
Yeah. Well, you're frightened of being assaulted.
I was probably too caught up in that moment of my focus. A critical incident had just occurred. I can't recall how I was feeling exactly at the time.
So in order to remove Kumanjayi as quickly as possible from the house, you dragged him across the ground?
Correct. My partner and I picked him up from either under both of his armpits, and we dragged him to the car that way.
And was that in accordance with the procedure that you were required to undertake at the time when transporting a person to a police vehicle?
No, it wasn't.
But you did so because?
We did so because, in my experience of moving people with injuries, such as that, and that was the fastest way to get him to the police vehicle, with the goal of then being able to provide him aid. And I know it doesn't go against, it goes against our general orders, obviously, in which I believe state you are to never drag someone. I know it can be deemed disrespectful, especially when you say, not you, sorry, when it said he was dragged, because the connotation doesn't necessarily mean that just his feet were being dragged, perhaps. In my experience, that was the fastest way to get him to the police vehicle in order to provide him aid. I am open to further training and knowledge in how to move someone in that situation. There was no disrespect intended. It was done so in a way to help him.
Well, the reason why it's against the general orders is because it is regarded as disrespectful, isn't it?
Correct.
And you dragged him for a distance of 25 metres.
I accept that.
And it gives you no surprise that the people who were present who observed that thought it was very disrespectful.
I accept that.
Were you ever assaulted by any person?
Have I been assaulted?
Were you ever assaulted by any person that day?
I was stabbed. So
No,
yes.
apart from that, were you ever assaulted by any person that day?
Apart from being stabbed,
When
no,
you're-
I wasn't.
When you were dragging the body out after the shooting?
No,
Did any person threaten you?
I didn't hear any threats.
Now, you went back to the police station. What was the atmosphere when you returned?
In the police station?
Correct.
In the car park?
In the police station.
So we spent some time in the car park first. In the police station, the atmosphere. I believe, I'm not sure how to answer that question. All I know that when I got back to the police station, my focus was on Kumanjayi and providing aid.
Do you accept that things were very tense?
Yes.
Do you accept that people were very concerned that people from the community may come back and, to use one of a better word, storm the station?
Oh, correct, yes.
And were those discussions being held at the station, that there was a possibility that that might happen?
Yes.
Now, early on, after your return to the station, did you observe Warren and Derek Williams coming to the station?
I don't recall, and perhaps I was just too focused at the time. I don't recall seeing either of them, but they may have. May have had my back to them.
Right. So you have no recollection of two Indigenous men coming into the station at all?
No, I don't.
Now, you assisted with the CPR, you've said that?
Correct. So we worked on Kumanjayi for approximately 60 minutes before CPR was required to commence.
Now, in the body-worn video worn by Constable Ebel, there's an exchange between you and Constable Hawkins, and this is Exhibit 4-3, 3 of 4. Would you like to see the exchange?
Yeah, please.
We can put it on the screen.
Yeah, well, if you want to put it on the screen, thank you. And it's page 2 of Exhibit 4-3, 3 of 4. Page 2.
So it's the transcript that you're interested in?
Yes, Your Honour. Thank you. Now, can you see the word, if we scroll down, please, can we see the word oi?
Correct.
So that's you? That's right? And then Hawking says, you all good? Rolf, all good. He was stabbing me, bro. Hawkins, hey, he was stabbing me. Hawkins, you got any injuries, mate? Rolf, nah, it was to the head, scissors, and then he tried to stab him. Hawkins, I tried to get what I could of the scene just with my camera. We had to get out of there, mate. Rolf, yes. All we can do now, guys, all we can do now is so he, and so on. You see that passage?
Yes.
And it's true, isn't it, that you said to Constable Hawkins when you returned to the station that you were being stabbed by Kumanjayi?
Correct.
And you were being, you had no injuries?
Correct. I said that.
Yep. And you were being stabbed to the head?
I said he tried in the head. Correct.
Well, he said, no, it was to the head.
I said what I accept that.
You accept it. You see, my point is, as at that point in time, you believed you'd be stabbed to the head.
Correct, as per my trial evidence.
Yes. Now, you subsequently had a conversation again with Constable Hawkins, and this is Exhibit 4-4, page 6 of 10. Screen's fine, if that's all right. Sorry, Your Honour, I don't want to hold things up too much.
I will just, is there going to be a bit more in this series?
No, Your Honour.
Okay, because otherwise Miss Ward's not staying here.
And on the first page? Okay, can we see there at the top, Hawkins, there's a rip to your shoulder, Rolf to the shoulder, inaudible. Hawkins, you got some scuffs on your arm too, keep your shirt on though. Rolf, I just want to, inaudible. Ebel, I'm going to check his shoulder, mate, make sure he's not injured. Rolf, look, there we are. Ebel, yep, can you, whatever. Hawkins, no major injuries. Rolf, no, mate. That's when you found the injury to the shoulder, wasn't it?
So I knew he'd stabbed me in the shoulder. I'd previously checked, and I was wearing a shoulder torch. I've mentioned that in the trial. It may not have been mentioned here. The shoulder torch was when I checked initially, it was blocking my view of the injury. So as the adrenaline wore off, and my shoulder began to increase in pain. I know there's conversations further in that I mentioned to the boys once. Unfortunately, once Kumanjayi passes, we need to check my shoulder because I knew I'd been stabbed and I just couldn't see it before because of the shoulder torch that I was wearing.
Yeah. See, I suggest to you that that's not the case. That in fact, when you first arrived back at the police station, you thought you'd been stabbed in the head, exactly as you said earlier on, and that you later discovered that you had been stabbed in the shoulder.
I disagree.
All right. Now, you heard rocks being thrown on the roof of the police station.
Correct.
Was any glass ever broken?
I don't believe so.
Was there any breach of the compound?
I don't believe so.
You knew that officers were going outside and patrolling the compound?
Yes, I believe so.
You were aware that there were people outside. Did you know the size of the crowd?
I did not.
Did you ever go to inspect it yourself?
No, I did not.
Now, you were subsequently transported to the airport. That's right?
To the air, like strip, yes.
To the airstrip. And so, well, just before I get to that, there was going to be an evacuation earlier on, wasn't there?
Correct.
And that didn't happen.
Correct.
Were you involved in the decision-making process for that?
No.
So, arrangements were being made to get you out through aircraft.
I believe the overarching arrangement for that was to get reinforcements in rather than to get me out. As a result of them flying in, there was obviously the additional option that I was able to be removed.
Right. Now, when you went to the airport, did you go in the ambulance?
I can't recall. I don't believe so.
So how did you go? You think you went out in a police vehicle?
I believe so, yes.
You don't recall which vehicle you were in?
No.
You don't recall who was driving?
No.
You don't recall anybody else who was in the vehicle?
No.
Is it the case that you're in fact lying down in the ambulance?
No.
No. Okay. Or were you otherwise hidden in one of the vehicles?
No.
Did you see the crowd outside when you were going to the airport?
I believe they were at the front and the exit of the compound was to the side. So I don't believe I saw. I may have. I can't recall this.
Why did you think you were being taken out to the airport?
By that point,
Yeah.
I was made aware that I had to be removed for the purposes of the investigation and to go past Alice Springs Hospital.
Now, I'm going to put a series of propositions to you. And I'm putting these propositions to you because it may well be in due course that these are the submissions that the Brown family make about the circumstances of this incident and your involvement. All right? So you can agree or disagree or make a comment. The first proposition is this. After watching the body-worn video of the axe incident and speaking to your colleagues, you arrived at the view that Kumanjayi was a highly dangerous offender. That's right?
Correct.
And that he was likely to resist arrest.
Incorrect.
If he resisted arrest, you arrived at the view, I'll withdraw that. If he resisted arrest in a similar way to what you had observed in the body-worn video relating to Hand and Smith, you had decided that you would resort to lethal force through the use of your Glock or other instrument.
Incorrect.
You thought that you had the skills to bring him in that people like Hand and Smith didn't have. That's right?
Correct.
And those skills included high level of fitness.
Correct.
Those skills included better fighting skills.
I'm not sure if I can speak on their fighting skills.
That's all right. Those,
I'm not sure on that one.
Those skills included your military experience.
I don't
his
believe.
difficulty is comparing himself to Hand and Smith because he's not aware of their skills. But he might think that they were skills that he had that were relevant. I don't know.
I'll reframe the question. Thank you, Your Honour. What I'm saying is that you believe you had a certain skill set that was better than the average police officer, which made you particularly equipped at bringing Kumanjayi Walker in.
I don't think I agree with that.
But that, can I suggest to you, you were highly trained in weapons?
Yes.
You had good military experience?
Yes.
You've already said you're a good communicator,
Yes.
and you were hard. You had done a lot of boxing your whole life.
Correct.
Now, when Kumanjayi resisted arrest and you engaged in a confrontation with him, he struck you in the head. That's true?
Correct.
You thought he might have had something in his hand, but during the struggle, I suggest you did not see a blade.
Incorrect.
It was too dark and things were moving too quickly.
Incorrect.
If you did see something, wouldn't you have told Ebel immediately?
Again, I think there are unrealistic expectations of human performance in this regard.
You see, you say that you were concerned for Ebel's safety, which is part of the reason why you discharged your Glock. And there were two things that concerned you. One was the blade, and the second was your affection for him as a fellow officer who had a family.
Correct.
Why would you not, when you saw the blade, say knife, knife, knife in accordance with your training?
Again, my previous answer is that I believe this is an unrealistic expectation of human performance. The only other incident involving this coronial that we can use to relate this to is to the axe incident, where I don't believe I have heard any or much criticism. And at neither point in that incident, which was related as similar or having some similarities, do I recall the officers yelling axe, 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 or weapon, or any of that regard. So I think that would support the fact that in a incident such as this, there are some unrealistic expectations occurring. And if there needs to be further clarification, that's probably a part for a performance psychologist to give an answer to.
Right. Hand and Smith, when they were confronted with the axe, there wasn't much doubt that they would have known it was there, would they?
I believe the training still states to call that out.
Even if it's clearly visible and a person's holding it above their head, you still call knife, knife, knife.
You could correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you would have access to the training.
You see, you were in the dark, in a struggle with the person you're attempting to arrest. You say you saw the blade protruding from the base of his hand, and you didn't tell your partner who was about to engage with him as well.
Correct. There is, again, unrealistic expectation of human performance, and then you want an example, another example?
I don't need another example. You just say that it was an unrealistic expectation of human performance. That's your answer?
That's my answer.
Yeah. And I suggest to you, your answer is, the truth is, you didn't see the blade at that point in time. Now, next point, at no time did Kumanjayi Walker put his left hand on your Glock. That was simply a fabrication.
Incorrect.
As Ebel and Kumanjayi struggled on the ground, Ebel's life was not in danger. He had control of the situation.
Incorrect.
What happened was that you overreacted and resorted to the plan that you had coming in over the preceding days, that if there was resistance and there was a fight, you were going to go for your Glock.
Incorrect.
It was a mistaken overreaction by you, wasn't it?
Incorrect.
But it's what you had been thinking about for the preceding 3 days when you had watched that video footage on multiple occasions.
Incorrect.
That is the axe incident, body-worn video. When you approached Kumanjayi after the third shot, you saw he had the scissors, that's right?
Well, if that's meant, I object if that's, the inference is that that's the first time, then I object to the question.
No, I said third.
That's,
I'm
I
sorry.
don't
Yeah,
think that's
that's
the
all right.
inference.
That's all right. When you approached Kumanjayi after the third shot, you saw he had the scissors.
So as far as I can recall, I pushed Ebel out of the way, rolled Kumanjayi onto his stomach, and put my weight on his back, trapping his arm under him. I then, in a controlled manner, removed his right arm with a blade in it while controlling that arm out from under his body. At that point, I confirmed that the blade was a pair of scissors.
All right. And it's the case, isn't it, that you then said words to the effect of he was stabbing you, he was stabbing me. Words to that effect.
Correct.
And you did that for the body-worn video footage.
Incorrect.
You did not know at the time that you had been stabbed in the shoulder.
Incorrect.
We've already discussed the fact that you came back to Hawkins and you told, you came back to the police station and you told Hawkins that he had been stabbing you in the head. That's right?
From my reading of that and what I recall, I was saying he was trying to stab me in the head.
And you surmised that he had been hitting you on the head and he had the scissors in his hand when he did it.
I would refer to my previous evidence that about what I've said before. I can't recall like if I've said it in this instance, but I can go through it again. He was hitting me in the head in a hammer fist motion. I thought that was strange because he wasn't using his knuckles. I then looked at his hand and observed the blade.
No. Now, you finally got back to Alice Springs and you started on your notebook where you recorded that you had been stabbed in the shoulder. That's right?
I got back to Alice Springs, went to the hospital, went to the police station, went home.
You recorded that you had been stabbed in the shoulder in the notebook as if it had actually happened and you knew about being stabbed in the shoulder at the time it happened.
I accept what I wrote in the notes.
Right. But even at that time, which is only less than 6 or 7 hours after the events, you got the sequence wrong in your handwritten notes, didn't you?
Yes, which is a completely understandable occurrence in a critical instance in regard to memory. Any one of you are able to...
well, that's probably expert evidence. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Wolf, but
is.
that's expert evidence for a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I don't know that you're qualified to give evidence about memory and the impact upon a person.
Oh, correct. I believe I'm allowed to answer your questions, and I wasn't giving evidence. I was saying that you would have been able to call witnesses for this coronial. And as far as I'm concerned, aware, none of you did call a witness such as you just stated. So if you wanted to gather information in the best manner, that probably would have been a good idea.
Yeah. But my question is a different one. My question is, you got the sequence wrong when you recorded it for the first time.
Correct.
You agree with that? And where you got the sequence wrong was that you said, I saw the blade. That's right?
I don't have my notes in front of me.
Would you like to see them?
I don't mind. I know that I got this sequence wrong. I can't play with the details with you, but I accept that I got the sequence wrong.
Right. Well, I think it's important you recollect, you see it if you can't remember it. So I'm sorry, it's exhibit, it was on that initial, oh, thank you.
117, 115.
Want it up on the screen?
I'm happy to have it on the screen.
Okay.
And there's also a transcript 71157.
I won't use the transcript, I'll use the original. Thank you. I'm not far off, Your Honour.
Up on the screen.
I know I'm getting close to my 45 minutes, but I'm not far
No,
off.
it's fine. Use the lines.
Take your time.
Now, this is your police notebook that you recorded the history as you recollected it on that night.
Correct.
Just one point. Was it just a coincidence it was a fresh notebook?
Just a coincidence.
Well, do you ordinarily record things in your notebook, your police notebook?
Oh, my shirt got seized at the Yundamu station with my notebook in it.
Oh,
That's
okay.
part of the evidence for the criminal trial.
Right, okay, so can we scroll down to the next page, please? And the next page, please. And we can, let's just a little further down, past the, just there, thank you. We can see on that page 0147 Alice Springs Station, contemporaneous notes, and you're called in to speak with Lee Phillips, with Chris Wilson, and then knocked off. And then is it right that it's at 0232 at home that you write the notes?
0232, correct.
Okay. So the rest of that page, we can scroll through to the next page. And at about line 6 or 7, you commence the narrative. On 9 November 2019, received call from Sergeant McCormack and so on. That's correct?
Correct.
If we then go through to page 5, you can see the pages in the bottom right-hand corner.
No, go on. It's this one, I think. Yeah.
Okay, and we can see there, there's reference to Kirstenfeld at 518, myself and Ebel at 511, informed by a lady it was empty, asked her if we could go inside, permission granted. On entry approached by male, identified as Walker in photo, on phone, put phone away, told him to turn around and place hands behind his back. And then the next page, started fighting us, hit me in the head, raised his fist back. I saw a blade in his right hand, stabbed me in the right shoulder. I believe I punched him in the face at this point. And then there's reference to Ebel and Walker end up on the ground. You believe Walker had Adam's back. I observed Walker attempting to stab Ebel with the blade. Now there's a note on that page that says, fear for my own life. Is that in your handwriting?
Yes.
What was the purpose of the note? I'm going to come back to that, I'm sorry. What was the purpose of the note?
To say at this point I feared for my own life.
Right. And why was it in the margin?
Because it's relevant.
I see. Do you ordinarily put headings or notes in the margins of the police notebook?
Relevant notes can go in the margins, yes.
All right. We go to the end of that page. I observed
No, go up. Go up.
I observed Walker attempting to stab Ebel with blade, and the next page, I yelled, he's stabbing you, or words to that effect. Now, even though what you yelled, as you've recorded it there, was not knife, 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 that was entirely, or would be entirely within your training, to have yelled immediately to your colleague that he's stabbing you.
Correct.
And that's not the case, is it? That's not what happened. You didn't yell anything when you saw the blade.
Correct.
But you hoped you had, because you hadn't seen the body-worn video at that point in time.
Incorrect.
Well,
But
there's
because I
two
hadn't-
things there, I'm sorry. I mixed that question up. There were two propositions there. The first is you hadn't seen the body-worn video, that's correct.
Correct.
And so when you were recording what you remembered happening, you hoped you had yelled out as soon as you'd seen the blade, because that would have been in accordance with your training.
Incorrect. Because it doesn't work, because I hadn't seen the body-worn video, so it doesn't make much sense for me to make notes about things I had said with the intention of them being on the body-worn video if I didn't believe. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense for me to try to make something up when I believe the body-worn video was on and recorded everything that had occurred.
What you were recording is what you were trying to remember happened. That's right?
I was recording what I was remembering that had happened at the time after a critical incident, yes.
And then we can see the next line is, I unholstered my Glock, fired into Walker's torso.
Correct.
Okay. No, I'm done with that. Thanks so much. Now that you've got the sequence wrong, in the days and weeks that followed, you saw the body-worn video and you realised you'd got the sequence wrong.
I wouldn't agree with that. Over a few good nights' sleep, my memory improved
Right.
in regard to the incident. And again, there are arguments as to whether, and this is probably in front of the times of this coronial, but there's arguments to occur whether or not it's more effective for witnesses to talk to each other, to jog each other's memory, and to watch the body-worn video to jog each other's memory. So I cannot recall now, over 4 years on, in what process my memory improved. Again, someone should have called an expert.
All right. Well, I'm sure that everybody will take that on board, but the reality is that, and I put this proposition to you, in the days and weeks that followed, number one, you watched the body-worn video. Is that true?
I watched the body-worn video at some point after it was supplied to my lawyer. That could be confirmed that date.
Okay. Secondly, you then started a process of reconstruction that was different from the record and the order of events in the notes.
Incorrect.
And you used the body-worn video to reconstruct what had happened?
Incorrect.
And in that reconstruction, you took into account and dealt with it in a way that supported your case of self-defence or defence of another.
Incorrect.
And that's how you came up with the version that you ultimately gave to Kristen Shorten.
Incorrect.
Now, but somewhere along the way, between 2019 and the trial, isn't it the case that you decided that maybe the presence of the small blade was not enough to convince the jury that your life and Ebel's life was truly in danger?
Incorrect.
And that's when you added to the version that at one point in that 6 seconds, between the time Kumanjayi started to resist and the time you pulled the trigger, that Kumanjayi put his left hand on your Glock.
Incorrect.
And you did that to try to suggest that you were in graver danger than in fact you were.
Incorrect.
And that was a fabrication, wasn't it?
I don't know how to answer that because I've already told you the previous question, what you're going off is incorrect.
Okay. Well, I'm putting to you, I'm just giving you the chance to comment on the fact that that was a fabrication. You've fabricated the evidence in the sense that it's untrue.
Well, incorrect.
Now, you went one step further in your spotlight interview, and that's Exhibit 2049, and it's at the 3rd page of that document. So this was after your trial, this interview, but before the verdict, is that right? It doesn't matter particularly, but it was around that time.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought I've got 2049. Yes. And then it's the, yes, so it's the 3rd page. I don't think my page, yes, my page is a number, sorry, the 4th page. And if we go down toward the bottom of the page, page 4, that's it, and just a little bit up. That's it, thank you, perfect. So this is what you told the Spotlight program. He was striking me around the head and the neck area, and he was striking me in a hammer fist motion. So his fist is like this, and he's coming down at me from above. Now, you're obviously demonstrating there, and is it like this? His fist is coming down on you like that?
Yeah, similar to that.
All right. And that's a motion with my arm extended above my right arm extended above my head and making a fist in a downward motion. As soon as that occurred, I lifted my left hand out and I lifted my shoulder to protect my neck. That's the first time I saw that he was holding a metal blade. Obviously, immediately for me, we were in a life or death situation and I feared for my life. But you didn't tell Ebel, Constable Ebel, did you?
Correct.
At that point, he stabbed me in the shoulder. I jabbed him in the face with my left hand and stepped back. My right hand instinctively went for my Glock. When I went for my Glock, I felt his left hand on my Glock already. And at that point, to be honest, I was impressed by his skills in violence. He had his presence of mind to go for my Glock, with his left hand while stabbing me with his right hand. Now, you are saying, aren't you, in that passage, that at some point, he was striking you with his right arm above his head, that's right, in a downward
Yes.
motion, and he had his left arm around your body toward your Glock, with his hand on your Glock.
Yes.
All right, so he's in this type of position that I'm in. Is that correct?
It was happening very fast. I don't know the nuances of the position.
And what was Ebel doing at the time that he was in this position?
Again, we need to go back to the trial evidence if you want more accuracy, or you could play the body-worn video, because there is a very helpful part of the body-worn video, which I'm sure you don't want to play, in regard to the hand on the Glock.
And at that point, when you say his hand's on your Glock, you reflected and spent a moment or so within that 6 seconds thinking to yourself, well, he's got great skills in violence, this fellow. That's what you thought. Is that right?
Well, that's just another moment of fear, an extra level of fear to the situation.
You're in a fight for your life with a man who has a blade and had his hand on your Glock, and you reflect, well, this guy's got terrific violence skills.
Have you ever been in a fight for your life?
I haven't,
Yeah.
but I'm certain, I'm going to suggest to you that that is pure fantasy.
I reject that. And again, if you had someone with more experience and expertise, I think that would be welcome in this instance to provide further evidence to give more information in this regard.
Just before that line continues, might I rise to make this point? Any of the counsel who appear at the bar table could have made suggestions, and indeed may have, about witnesses who can be called in this inquest. An inquest that commenced on the 5th of September 2022. Mr. Rolfe has been very ably represented by King's Counsel and solicitor and junior counsel throughout the course of this inquest. And as far as I know, no suggestion was ever made to the counsel assisting team that there should be a memory expert or any other expert called who has not been called. And neither has any report been produced.
And of course, other parties have produced expert evidence, or at least attempted to.
Yes, that's the case.
So it was well known that that was available.
That's the case.
Thank you, Mr. Rolfe. Thank you, Your Honour. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Bolton?
Court pleasures, Mr. Rolfe. My name is Philip Bolton. I represent the North Australian Aboriginal Justice Agency in this inquest.
I have to leave this court at 3 o'clock, so I don't want to interrupt Mr. Bolton. If I could be excused at that time, Mr. Officer will be here in my stead in that time.
Yes,
I'll be
certainly.
back, but I will be away for an hour or so.
Certainly, Mr. Abbott.
You'd be familiar with Naja from your day-to-day work here in Alice Springs.
Yes.
You've already explained today how you came to be here in Alice Springs after a life which was quite different before your arrival in Alice Springs.
Yes.
During the time that you were here, did you form the view that this is a place where life is complex for most of the people who are residents?
Yes, I think that's fair.
With challenges that people in suburban Australia don't normally have to deal with.
Yes.
And although you didn't receive comprehensive training about cultural issues, did you start to pick up some of the important differences between life for the Indigenous people of the Central Desert on the one hand and the people that you would have dealt with in the rest of your life?
I would need more specific examples if that's...
Well, I'm going to ask you shortly some things about what your perception of difference there was, if any. but you would have picked up some of the things that other people in Australia might need to read books about. You learned on the job, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you come to know who the traditional owners of a market are?
No, I did not. In regard to, sorry, I was thinking of the, I misunderstood the question, thinking of the current elders in the situation, but yes, sorry.
So who are the traditional owners?
The,
Without naming the personal people, but the group.
I'm going to pronounce it wrong, so I'd rather not. I'm going to pronounce it wrong, so I'd rather not.
Aranda? Is that what you're going to pronounce?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know?
Sorry, I believe there was an extra few letters in that, so, but that was my mistake.
Do you know why they're called the traditional owners and not just the owners?
Look, I don't have enough cultural training to understand this.
Who used to own this country?
My object to this, Your Honour, this is far, far removed. I've no objection to general questions about my client's lack of knowledge, but this is not an examination on cultural awareness, and in my submission, it's entirely inappropriate. This sort of examination should be allowed of this witness, given what he said about his lack of cultural training. Something they can make what they like of that, and obviously it's appropriate they do so. But then to test it as though this was an examination in relation to cultural awareness, is my submission going to take a very long time and achieve nothing.
I have limited time and I'm not going to spend a lot on it, but I submit that what I've been asking is relevant. And it's
Well, if we're looking at training and the level of training that's required, it seems to me that it's relevant to Mr. Bolton.
You didn't read much about how the colony took over this country, but did it occur to you whilst you worked here that there'd been a change in the last century or so where Aboriginal people owned and controlled and were connected intimately to the country, but now it's people from outside this area that control it?
I accept that.
Did it occur to you that that might make a difference to the way that Aboriginal people perceive outsiders who come here, not just as police officers, but who govern them?
Outsiders as an interstate.
Anybody who's not from this country. This country.
What do you mean when you say this country?
I mean Aranda country.
I guess it didn't because, or in some instances, yes, but we could go a lot further down this and I'm just not qualified to answer these questions.
When you were living here and working amongst the people from here, did you learn anything about the strengths of their culture?
I did not have much cultural training in Alice Springs, and as I've said previously, as a police officer, I attend jobs where people have called the police, where they need help, or where people have broken the law. I've said this previously, I have not been called to cultural events as a police officer, so there is not much opportunity for me to do so.
Did you not have casual conversations with the people amongst whom you work, not just the police officers, but the community members, about their country?
No, I did not.
Did you talk about or read about song lines?
About what, sorry?
Song lines.
SOG?
Song lines. SONGLINES.
No.
Okay. Did you learn anything at all about the beliefs of the people here, about how they are connected to their country?
No.
Did you learn about their kinship system?
I get all in a matter of basic terms.
Was it, in your view, relevant to know how people were connected to each other through kinship connections?
In my experience as a police officer, it did not, at the time, affect how I acted out my duties of the law.
Did you not ever once, in an arrest plan, for instance, ask any of your colleagues what relatives the target might have that might assist you in your task?
Yes.
Did you think that Aboriginal people's connections to their relatives is a very, very strong part of their culture?
I've seen no evidence that it's stronger or weaker than any other culture that I'm aware of.
Did you become aware that there are differences between kinship connections for Aboriginal people in Central Australia on the one hand, and so the kinship connections that suburban white people have in Australia?
Yes.
Was it in your view that an understanding of cultural etiquette, skin names, and family relationships was relevant, at least, to your work?
Skin names and family connections.
Yeah, and cultural etiquettes.
From my understanding of skin names, I'm not sure. The other two, yes.
Did you know, for instance, that there are poison relationships in Aboriginal kinship ties?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Were you aware of the need to avoid trouble concerning those interactions?
I was aware of that in between members of that culture. I've never been involved in a situation as a police officer where that has had any effect.
Did you ever tailor your interactions with Aboriginal people in order to avoid cultural conflict, like the one we've just been discussing in the last few answers?
I can't recall every job that I've been to. There may have been situations where someone has said that they can't be in the same area as a poison relative, at which point we would never make that occur, obviously. But I can't think of specific examples.
Were you aware of the concept of establishing community trust between police and Aboriginal members of these communities in this area?
Yes, as per all communities that we work in.
Were you aware of the significance of funerary rites in Aboriginal communities?
Again, I'm not aware that funeral rites are any more or less important than in any other culture.
But did you become aware, well, I'll withdraw that. Did you become aware of how funerals and sorry business is undertaken in Central Australia?
Only to an extremely minor extent.
Did you become aware that sorry business does not conclude as the deceased is lowered into the grave?
Yes, I have never seen any strict information on sorry business in regard to timings.
Did you understand that there is a concept of women's business and men's business, both attached to sorry business in Central Australia?
I was aware that there was both men's business and women's business and sorry business.
Did you have a view that Kumanjayi Walker was in Yuendamu when you went to arrest him because of sorry business?
Did I hold that view?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
Your evidence is that you didn't know that there was a funeral on?
I was made aware that there was a funeral on.
When?
I can't recall.
Were you aware that there was a funeral when you attended the two houses that you entered that evening?
Information to me was that the funeral should have been over.
Who told you that?
Sergeant Frost.
And did she tell you that sorry business was over?
No, she did not.
Did you know that there was more to it than just the funeral being over?
No, I did not.
You didn't know that.
No.
In a similar vein, were you aware that in Central Australia, in places like Yuendamu, families live indoors and outdoors quite commonly?
I haven't spent time in Yuendamu before. In the communities that I had been in, that was a common occurrence to sleep indoors or outdoors.
It was.
Yes.
And were you familiar with the idea of men's camps, women's camps, and other shared spaces in Walkley culture?
I was aware of men's camps, women's camps, and sacred sites. I'm not sure about the other shared spaces or what that could mean.
Are you
apart from
aware of the concept of Nura, N-G-U-R-R-A?
I'm not aware of that word.
Okay. The importance of place, safety place, the safe place, my community, my town, my resting place. Were you aware of the significance of that concept when you went to the house where you sought to arrest Kumanjayi Walker?
No, this is the first time I've ever heard of Nora.
You were a very, very diligent police officer throughout your time in Alice Springs, weren't you?
Sometimes, yes.
You were energetic in your duties as best as you could be.
Again, sometimes when I had the energy, yes.
You understood that your work was important, didn't you?
Yes.
You enjoyed your work most of the time, didn't you?
Most of the time, yes.
You came to regard your fellow officers, especially your fellow on the job, general duties, patrol member officers, as being very, very important part of your life, didn't you?
Yes, some of them were a very important part of my life.
You loved responding to your jobs.
Is that my evidence?
That's a quote from part of your interview with Ms. Shorten.
I accept that. And I loved responding to some jobs. That's a generalisation again.
You loved how busy it was in Alice Springs.
Again, yes, there was times that I loved the busyness.
And you loved working with the crews on the ground.
Yes, most of the time.
You thought that your general duties colleagues were amazing to work with.
Yes, most of them.
You received a lot of positive feedback from your general duties colleagues about your work, didn't you?
Correct.
Let's not beat around the bush. You were regarded by the colleagues you trusted as an excellent police officer.
I believe so.
And an exceptional police officer.
You'd have to ask them. I wouldn't say that.
But that's the way you understood your perception amongst your colleagues, right?
I had a good reputation.
Yeah. You've said a few critical things about the brass
Yes.
in your evidence. But generally speaking, as far as you could tell, the superintendents and commanders here in Alice Springs, they had a positive view of you too, didn't they?
I would say 2 superintendents, definitely not. But others, perhaps. Yes, there was definitely some that did.
Okay, so apart from the formal discussions that were had officially as a result of some issue that arose in relation to use of force and body-worn video incidents, did any of your superiors sit down with you and say to you, we think you should change your approach in any way?
No.
Did any of your superiors give you positive feedback about the way that you conducted your policing duties?
Yes.
What sort of feedback did you get? What sort of positive feedback did you get?
I believe there's a couple of, I guess, commendation-like emails for jobs well done. More so, it would have been the utilisation or the repeated utilisation by those higher level staff to request me specifically in order to attempt to locate and arrest specific arrest targets if potentially they were hard to catch.
Just take that example. In the years you were here, did you form the view that your methodology in planned arrests was the accepted way to conduct those planned arrests, at least so far as your superiors were concerned?
I wouldn't say it was the only accepted way, but I would accept that it was an accepted way by my superiors.
In fact, you were commended on a number of occasions for the way that you executed some of those operations.
Correct.
And did you ever receive negative feedback about the way that you conducted any of those operations?
No.
Well, what about spontaneous incidents? On the job, things develop close by, quickly. You were often the first person to respond were you not?
It depends because the situation depended if I'm working one up, if I'm working with another person, if I'm stuck on a job. But yes, I was proactive in my response in fluid situations like that.
You were fast, you were athletic, and you were effective, so far as you understood.
Correct.
You were faster than most.
Correct.
More athletic than nearly everyone.
Correct.
And more effective than nearly everyone.
I can't. There is data that can support that. I more effective than the average for sure, but accepted to a point. But I wouldn't say nearly everyone.
So just as with planned arrest situations, your modus operandi in general duties policing and arrests particularly, you understood was regarded highly by your colleagues
Yes.
and by your immediate superiors,
Yes.
and indeed by the brass here in Alice Springs.
Yes.
Did you ever get any negative feedback about the way you conducted policing in Alice Springs at all, apart from body-worn footage and some use of force incidents?
No, and even in regard to the use of force incidents, the only negative, if you could call it negative feedback, was the request to respond to PSC, but none from my superiors in Alice Springs. I can't recall any other than those or the body-worn videos incidents.
Okay. So, insofar as witnesses have come into this court in the course of the inquest and offered views to suggest that your methods were on particular occasions unsatisfactory, excessive, or unwarranted. You never heard anyone say any such things to you when you're actually a police officer. Is that right?
Correct.
In the immediate aftermath of Kumanjayi's death, when there was a national focus on that incident in the media, did you receive support from your general duties colleagues?
Yes.
Did any of them come to you after the incident and criticise you for anything that you did during the course of the events at Yuendamu on that night?
No.
What about in the years that have gone by since then? Have any serving police officers with whom you worked, apart from the brass, come to you and said, look, we've been following this inquest and we've changed our minds. We think you should have done this, you should have done that, you should have done something different.
There has been discussions, obviously, about how in hindsight everything could be done better, but I have received no criticism by any of the people in that majority of in any one except for the brass that you've mentioned in this coronial, and that one witness in the trial. The use of force.
Use of force expert.
Yes.
Okay, sure. So even with the benefit of hindsight and time and reflection, do you think that what you did in the day or two and up to the time of the death of Kumanjayi was in any way unjustified, excessive or inappropriate?
No.
In retrospect, and considering the amount of time that's been spent in this inquest about your use of force in other circumstances besides Kumanjayi's death, did you do anything in any arrest situation that was excessive, unnecessary, or inappropriate?
I believe in probably every situation I was nearly in, I could do better. I could always do better. I don't deny that at all. I'm not saying I'm perfect by no means. I definitely am fallible and have made mistakes. I admit that. I can say yes, I've done some things that are on the job that are inappropriate, which would be a mistake.
Well, there's body-worn footage issues.
Exactly.
Put them to one side. What about the use of force?
I would say no to excessive and no to unjustified.
Well, why would they be inappropriate uses of force if not justified and not excessive?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't talking about use of force incidents that are inappropriate. I'm talking about things I may have said, rudeness in my voice,
Right.
even the Albert Bailey incidents when I allowed anger to come across in my voice, losing an element of professionalism, things like that.
In the overall scheme of things, human imperfections of minor degree.
Yes, I agree.
In the aftermath of the Kumanjayi shooting, numerous colleagues sent you well wishes, didn't they?
Yes.
Have you still got a copy of these text messages? MFI Triple M? If you could look at message number 553, please.
Yes.
This is a message on the 9th of November
Yes.
at 7:52 p.m.
Yes.
Where were you at that time?
I was still in Yuendamu.
In the police station?
Yes, without reception. I didn't have
No,
reception
I'm
at that.
not
Yeah.
suggesting that you got this message immediately. But was the person who sent that message a police officer?
Yes.
Good work, I hope you're okay.
Yes.
That must have been the very first message that anyone sent to you about
I would accept that.
555,
Yes.
10th of November,
Yes.
12:29 a.m. So this is still the night of the incident.
Yes.
Mark Sykes said, "You look after yourself, you're the most important person in this situation."
Yes.
That meant a lot to you, I take it.
Yes.
And again, message 556, Jimmy Kirsten fell, 1:22 a.m. Just checking in, you're all right, mate.
Yes.
Message 560, 1:47 a.m. Mitch Hanson, if there's anything you need, just let me know, mate. Give me a ring when you have time, no stress.
Yes.
And at 2:59 a.m, message 566, XZ, I think is Ms. Zengelli.
Yes.
If you're having trouble sleeping, I've got pills I can drop off.
Yes.
And at 5:28 a.m, message
Civilian.
568. No, I'll withdraw that. Well, at 570,
That's a civilian. Below that, police.
yeah. I won't say the note, but at 570, message 570, 9:13:17 a.m.
Yeah.
on the 10th of November, you sent a message to a person saying cookies are too good now.
Yes.
Where were you when you sent that message?
I was at home at my house in Alice Springs at the time. One of my friends, this person, had dropped off a number of baked cookies.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just confirm? No marijuana in these cookies, just Coles bought cookies.
But an act of generosity from a friend.
Yes.
Um,
Partner of a police officer.
okay. Message 571 and 573, are they messages from a police officer?
Yes.
They also on the morning of the 10th of November,
Yes.
and that person, that police officer, we know got your back
Yes.
right from the start. Very firm support from the police.
Yes.
If you go to message 598,
Yes.
is that a message from a police officer?
Ex-police officer. Yes.
That ex-police officer also said at that time, hope you're okay.
Yes.
And message 600,
Civilian. Yes.
that civilian sent you a message on the 10th of November in the afternoon. Hey, brah, super stoked for you.
Yes.
And I think you were asked about this the other day. Let's see those pussies in TRG say no now.
Yes.
Again, a positive message, basically.
Yes.
And we know the difficulties that you had with the TRG rejecting your application, several applications.
Yes. The promotion board rejecting it. Yes.
Could you look at 617?
Yes. Ex-police officer.
An ex-police officer? Oi,
Oh, and if it matters, the person in that is a ex-police officer, now civilian as well, if that matters.
okay, we weren't using,
Sorry, Ronnie, might I just be addressed on that in relation to any non-publication orders? But it's a matter for your Honour, of course, to hear submissions on, but if somebody's an ex-police officer, and perhaps Mr. Officer needs to take some instructions on this, but I don't appreciate why their names couldn't be used in that. Still, I think it might be different to civilians, but perhaps it's a matter for Mr. Officer.
Your Honour, I might need a brief moment, but I think it might be the name in there, perhaps the time in which they became an ex-police officer might be relevant. Were they
Look,
ex?
they're not being used at the moment.
I think Dr. Dwyer's going to say that it is relevant for some purpose later, or
Perhaps at this stage they could just be referred to as an ex-police officer and referring to another police officer. I think the point for the message to make sense is just that the person in the sentence badass was a former police officer at least, or a current serving police officer, one or the other.
I'm not sure if he'd want to be heard about that, I don't know. But perhaps
Look,
just
at this stage, they're not being referred to. But the situation is, as I understand it, there is a non-publication order over the names of civilians except where they have been found to be relevant. There is no order in relation to police officers except if a specific order has been made. In my view, that order should apply to no order in relation to police officers if they were serving at the time of the text message. But if you want to make a different application, I'd hear from you. Or if you want to make any other suggestion, Dr. Freckleton.
For the present, Your Honour, can I respectfully suggest this, that names of current or former police officers not be used unless it is likely to be helpful to the inquest to identify the specific individual.
Right, look, we probably need to clarify that at some point. They're not being used at the moment, so I'm going to proceed.
Yes.
But we need to clarify
Yes.
the non-publication order in relation to names of police officers.
Yes.
So
Thank
if
you.
everyone's happy to proceed, we'll come back to it.
this person said, oi, blockhead. Badly emphasised.
Yeah.
You mad dog. You must immortalise yourself, man. Shit. Badass now like MH. But hey, man, if you need anything, I got your back, etc., etc. And you are now amongst the top 1%. What a status, bro. You see that?
Yes.
Badass now like MH. What's that about?
MH is a ex-police officer with I would say, an exceptional reputation amongst the police force in the Northern Territory.
For doing what?
For generally being a very good police officer. I'm not aware of any critical instances like this that he's been involved in.
What did you understand it to mean that you're amongst the top 1% now?
I'm not completely sure. I just took it as a compliment or a show of support.
Okay. And a little later, the same person said you're a ledge bra.
Yes.
Legend.
Yes.
So it's wholesome support.
Yes.
Wholesale support.
Yes.
And 621, I think we can say this person's name, can we not?
I think this has been said before.
Yeah, this is Ms Zendelli.
Yes.
And she reported to you at 11:33 p.m. on the day after the shooting. Superintendent Knowles just commended you and said your conduct was justified. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did anyone else tell you anything to that effect?
I had been told that I'd been cleared on justification and excuse by detectives at the station, and they were working through their way through authorisation.
Who told you that?
Detective, perhaps senior sergeant Leith Phillips, by my recollection.
When were you told that?
On, I believe, Sunday morning.
So this is Sunday morning.
When I had to go into the station.
Sunday's the 10th, is it not?
Yeah. So the Sunday morning, not through text, in person. I had to go back into the station, so I got home at about 3 a.m. on Sunday, I believe.
Yeah.
Slept for a few hours, and I believe approximately around 9 a.m.
Yeah.
I went back to the station to meet the psych, at which point I saw a few people.
So that's when you were told that people who were investigating the issue had determined it looked like you hadn't done anything wrong.
Yes.
You asked Ms Zendelli, where did Mr Nobbs do this? This is a 623, you said?
Yes.
And she told you in muster last night. You see that?
Yes.
If you go to 626, on the 11th of November at 6:10 a.m, the person that is known as CV sent you a message saying, hey brother, just touching base to see if you're still travelling all good.
Yes.
And at 6:28, 7:59 a.m, you received another message, did you not?
Yes.
Is that from a civilian or a police officer?
Ex-police officer.
That person said, hey bro, heard you were involved in this Yuendamu crap, hope you're doing okay, right?
Yes.
You told her, I'm doing good, see that?
Yes.
And she said, ha ha, you're too tough for that shit, just wanted to touch base, take care brother, to another mother, kiss, stop picking on them black fellas, LOL.
Yes, and just for context, she is black.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
just to...
So, and I got it. She's, by the look of it, Pacific Islander.
Yes.
Um,
Oh, yes.
What did you think of someone making a light-hearted comment about the fact that you killed an Aboriginal young man
In
the
regard
day
to...
after the killing?
In regard to that specific comment,
Yeah.
sorry. I didn't think, obviously, I can't recall my thoughts on the day specifically. I don't think I put too much weight on what was said. I saw them for a show of support and a belief that I had done had done nothing wrong.
The reference to stop picking on them black fellas puts a different angle on, we didn't do anything wrong here, Zach. This is like whether she's Pacific Islander, black or brown. It's commentary about the race of the person you killed, isn't it?
It is, again, it's not from me. I would take it as a incident of dark humour in regard to a traumatic event, but it didn't come from me. and I can't recall my specific thoughts at the time. I understand the perspective, the other perspective. Dark humour is, I believe, always going to be found offensive by someone outside of that vacuum.
So 6:31, you received another message of support
Civilian.
from a civilian. Oh, you toughie. What about after it all? You all G?
Yes.
All good? Correct?
Yes.
And then there's an exchange of messages in what I would call a conversation.
Yes.
And at 6:35, she said to you, do you think you'll get a bit of backlash? You see that?
Yes.
And you said, not from the police, maybe from the public. You see that?
Yes.
You weren't expecting backlash from the police, were you?
Not at all.
In fact, by that time, you'd already received positive feedback from the police.
By that time, on the 11th, I had received positive feedback. I believed I was going back to work on, this is the Sunday. On the Monday. I believed I was going back to work on Wednesday. To carry on without any, without obviously what had occurred. So yes, I didn't believe there was going to be any negative consequence from the police.
This friend of yours said at 6:37 was the lad Aboriginal.
Yes.
Confirmed that he was. Then she asked you, or she said, you're always going to get backlash from the public when it comes to dealing with an Aboriginal. All G though, I got your back. I'll fight them for you. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. Where did this person live?
Rural Victoria.
Righto. And to your understanding, did she have any professional experience dealing with Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander Australian people?
It's likely. She worked in a hospital. Her partner was Aboriginal. So personally, yes. Professionally, I'm not sure. But I would expect some.
So she was prepared to fight the Aboriginal people?
I believe she's referring to the public.
The public who was supporting the Aboriginal people?
I wouldn't look too much into it, but yes, that's up to her.
Yeah. Message 681.
Sorry, sir. Would you mind a bathroom break soon?
The witness is asking for a break.
Sure,
Just
it's 3:15, so we'll take a 15-minute after.
Sorry to
adjournment.
comment on the issue?
Coronial Place now resumed. Please be seated.
Yes, Mr Martin.
If you could look at message number 681, please.
Yes, I potentially current serving police officer.
Potentially,
But she was a police officer at the time.
she was.
Yeah, but I haven't kept
Let's not
contact.
use a name any.
Yeah.
Okay. This person who was a police officer at the time sent you this message on the 12th of November. I know we aren't friends or anything, but I hope you're doing okay. Don't listen to the protesters. They have no idea what it would have been like to be in your position. Your blue family is with you.
Yes.
Clearly, she talks about the blue family as the police.
Yes.
And by that time, by the 12th of November, there were protests about the shooting in Alice Springs.
That's the Tuesday, I believe. But yes, obviously, according to obviously, yeah.
Are you aware of a meeting of police officers, an informal gathering of police officers in the police station on or about the 12th of November?
Sorry, is that Tuesday?
I'm not sure. Well, it doesn't matter the date, but soon after you were asked to wait for further developments.
I'm not aware of. I don't believe I'm aware of a. Unless I get some hints as to who may have
There
been
was
there.
some evidence a year or so ago in this inquest that
Yes.
at or about the time that there were protests in Alice Springs, where there was harsh criticism of you.
Yes.
There was an informal gathering in the police station in Alice Springs where there was favourable comment supporting you. Are you aware of anything like that?
I can't recall it at the time. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I can't recall it at the time. Right now.
If you look at message 683,
Yes.
is that a police officer?
Civilian.
That person said, I met you in ED, emergency department.
Yes.
Just wanted to let you know I'm thinking about you and sending you strength and positive vibes during this time, correct?
Correct.
And 685, DB, sorry, is that a police officer?
If you say that, it can't be. It's not going to tell who it is.
You don't know who that is?
No, I know who it is, but if you say DBK, it won't be
Is it a
identified.
police officer?
Yes.
Okay. They say, just thought you should know that I support you. We all do. You're a top bloke and you just did your job. Glad you're still here, correct?
Yes.
And you told him,
Her.
in 687, the support's been unreal. Do you see that?
Yes.
And at 688, again, there is a message from Ms. Zendelli.
Yes.
Some prick is leaking information. It's making me so mad. Don't listen/read the media, Zach. You know you did the right thing and the truth will unfold. Arseholes, correct?
Correct.
You probably didn't count them at the time or even now as I went through them with you, but there are 17 instances of those supporting text messages to you and from you in that period of 3 or 4 days after the shooting, right?
I accept that.
If I could just take you back to 659.
Yes.
Mr. Kirstenfeld sent you a message. Stop talking to these C's. Lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. They're covering their own arse. You see that?
Yes.
And in the next one, you left and didn't get to see the aftermath of arse covering. Stop talking to them. They are fucking covering their own arse.
Yes.
You said, got it, bro. He said, don't trust these snake fucks. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. Is he talking to you about something that had happened after you left the police station on the 11th of November?
That's what I took it to be referring to. The Yuendamu police station.
No, I'm talking about the Alice Springs police station.
Oh, I
Because he's talking about arse covering.
Yes, I assumed at the time that he was talking about after I left the Yuendamu police station, but if there was a meeting in Alice Springs, it could be that. But I'm not aware of, I can't recall any meeting in Alice Springs.
You seem to understand what he was talking about. You said, got it, bro. Can you remember now what you thought he was talking about?
Yes, up until this moment, I thought he was talking about when he says you didn't get to see the aftermath of arse covering. You left after I saw that, and I assumed it was the Yuendamu police station because I wasn't involved in any meeting at the Alice Springs station involving the IRT members, or involving any of the members that were at my house at that time that message was sent.
He was telling you to stop talking to people. Who did you think he was urging you not to talk with?
I think Jimmy can get a bit paranoid when he's on the beers, probably when he's not on the beers as well, sometimes.
6 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, the statement still stands.
Yeah, right.
He must have been talking about some of the officers that were at my house. I don't agree with that assessment of those officers. And I don't think he would in the clear light of day, but that's a question for Jimmy. But it has to have been one of or more of the officers at that gathering.
These are your colleagues.
Yes.
Just for just to check my own understanding, these were messages that were sent at the gathering at your house. You were there and...
Yes. So Jimmy was in the room with me
and
when
he
he
was
sent this.
texting you.
Yes.
Right, so I understand now too.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was...
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Mr. Rolfe. What about that one at 664? It's so filthy, I'm not even going to read it out. What's that about?
Say, for the purposes of I don't know how to say it politely about Jimmy. That is Jimmy's sense of humour. Because I have a Garmin watch that vibrates when I get a message. So when he sends that message, my watch will vibrate and I would look at it. And then that would make him have a little giggle.
It's a homophobic message.
Just explain.
Well, I know that your lawyer doesn't think it's homophobic. What about you? You think it's homophobic?
I didn't take it to be homophobic.
Righto. You received a lot of support from police throughout the Northern Territory in one way or another in the months and now years since the incident occurred.
Yes.
As you said in your letter, which is Exhibit 26, no police officers that I have actually worked with have spoken poorly about me in the Coronial or the trial. It is the opposite. The only members who have spoken poorly about me are those who have never met me or senior police who hide behind desks. Agreed?
Agreed.
You have, especially now, a poor opinion of commentators who haven't done what you have done. Agreed?
Can I just ask for a bit more explanation?
Yeah, people who have criticised you have not done the hard yards that you put in as a frontline police officer. You have a poor opinion of those critics, don't you?
I have a harder time understanding criticisms from those who have a lack of understanding of the situation in which they are criticising.
Has your support come from outside of the Northern Territory?
In addition,
Yeah, in addition.
yes.
Have you received substantial support from serving police officers in other states
Yes.
and the ACT,
Yes, including.
federal police?
Yes.
You have received the full backing of your union, have you not?
Whilst the time that I was going through the trial process, yes, most definitely.
If you might have a look at this document. We have copies for everybody.
It's Exhibit 6.
But I'll have a look at it, thanks.
Yeah,
Chris.
okay, it's Exhibit 6.
Thanks.
I'd forgotten that.
Thank you.
This is something that was published in Police News in June 2022. Okay?
Yeah, I accept that. I accept that.
And if you look at pages 30 and 31,
Yes.
it's an article about you, right?
Yes.
Police News is the official publication of the Northern Territory Police Association.
Yes, I believe so.
On page 31, you are quoted. You see that in the box on the left-hand bottom of the page.
Yes.
And they're your words.
Yes.
You got support from the union right through the course of the trial, including them covering your legal expenses. I'm
Yes.
not saying that's wrong, by the way.
No, I just want to be
You don't.
get it correct about that. I believe they covered it, but I believe they perhaps Dr. Freckman can confirm there's an agreement between them in regard to legal fees. Sometimes in situations like this, but at the time,
Let's just leave it on the basis that there was a financial contribution from your union.
yes,
And as you understand it, the association is in all ways still supportive of you personally and your actions during the events that have led to this inquest.
I haven't had much interaction with the association in the last few months. Up until the point when Paul McHugh left, I can say yes, 100% to that answer. I can't give an opinion based with the new president. I'm not sure.
You no longer remember.
I'm no longer a member. Yes.
Okay. There was quite a lot of social media activity
Yes.
that was generated in support of you, correct?
Correct.
And particularly in support of your actions at Yuendamu on the occasion of Kumanjayi's death, correct?
Correct.
You look at this document. It's copies for everyone. Now, this is a clipping from an online article from the ABC News website in September 2020. Someone was printing off T-shirts about this incident, right? Singlets.
Yes.
Do you know people that bought any?
I believe this occurred in Darwin, and I'm not aware of the. I know the officer's name, the ex-officer's name. I believe I know his name now.
It's in there.
Oh, is it? Okay. So
Don't worry about the name of the fellow.
I don't know him and have never met him. I'm actually not aware of anyone who has bought these singlets.
Okay. See this hashtag Blue Lives Matter?
Yes, seen.
Was that a social media tag?
I imagine it would be.
Did you review Instagram, Facebook, or
I've
Twitter?
been shown a lot of things from a lot of supportive pages from Facebook. Pardon?
Do you know about Blue Lives Matter?
I know the saying. I imagine there's multiple groups with that slogan or similar.
We back Zach.
I've seen that slogan. Yes.
Where did you see it?
I've seen that on social media. I believe I've seen that on car stickers and other forms of stickers.
There was a very widespread media and social media presence from your supporters in the years after the shooting.
Yes.
Okay. If Your Honour sees fit to receive the news item.
Exhibit 27.
Thank you.
Mr. Rolfe. When it became clear that the coroner was likely to examine in evidence text messages like the ones I've been taking you to, there was publicity, widespread publicity, about the fact that those messages included comments that a lot of people would describe as racist.
Yes.
Since it became clear that that was likely to be the topic of evidence, has anyone come to you and personally expressed disappointment about the use of that language?
Yes.
Have they changed their views about the way you acted in any of your police duties?
No one has expressed that to me, no.
As you sit there now, do you understand that the vast majority of serving Northern Territory Police thought and continue to think that your policing methods were exemplary?
In general, or in the
In general.
in general, I don't know if exemplary is the right word.
Well, how would you frame it?
I would a bit less than that, but above average, above average, most definitely.
And you think that's the considered view of the vast majority of people in the police force in the Northern Territory, at least the police who have to deal with the public?
From what I can see from outside, and I can only say anecdotally, there's nothing to back this up. It's just the feeling is in private, 100%. In public, that attitude may change, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so what you're saying is you think the genuine views, deeply held, of the vast majority of the Northern Territory Police, at least up to the rank of sergeant or even senior sergeant, is that you did an excellent job as a police officer throughout your career.
That's my view, yes.
Okay, and they might not say it now, but that's what they believe. That's the messages I'm receiving. What about the use of what many people would describe as racist language? What's your understanding about what people think of that?
There's no acceptance for that amongst anyone I've spoken to, or no justification for it. But I do believe, again, privately, there is an understanding. Publicly, there was a notion that that is not accepted anywhere in the Northern Territory Police. But I think, again, the majority privately understand that police officers, a large number of police officers have used racist language, similar to the language that's been seen in my text messages. And I think there may initially have been a lot of shock and disappointment, but then when having a look internally at themselves, a level of understanding. No justification, but understanding.
Just clarify the extent to which you are aware of the use of, I'll call it racist terms. We might disagree with it, but let me, for the sake of this question, call it racist terminology.
Yes,
You used it in text messages.
yes,
Your closest colleagues used it in text messages.
yes,
You're aware of people using that sort of language in the muster room at Alice Springs Police Station during the time that you were there.
yes,
Relatively common.
yes,
You're aware now that you're hearing people talk about it, that that type of language is actually quite common amongst your police colleagues wherever they might serve in the Northern Territory.
I believe so, yes.
Well, I want to ask you your views about a number of propositions based in evidence in this inquest. What do you say to the suggestion that a colleague of yours in the IRT had never heard Alice Springs police officers or members of the IRT use that sort of racist term? Agree or disagree?
Which term?
Terms. So we're talking
Racist language.
racist
I
language.
thought the question was that racist term. which
Those
I-
racist terms, like the ones that you've been subjected to questioning in this inquest. And you know what I'm talking
I
about.
do. I'm just, I disagree. I believe in this situation of this inquest, there's a number of levels that are creating fear amongst some witnesses in the police force in regard to their answers, with the perception, whether it be real or not, of negative consequences in regard to their answers for this situation. In regard to this coronial.
Well, may I ask you, what sort of negative consequences do you think they're concerned about?
I believe they're afraid of career or punishment consequences.
Okay. May I ask, what consequences did you receive for your use of racist language?
I believe, and Dr. Freckling can correct me if I'm wrong, it may have been as part of a bundle of the remedial guidance.
You got remedial guidance about your language in 2023.
Yes, it was part of that bundle.
Okay. Anything else?
Pardon?
Was there any other consequence to you,
For me,
for you?
only the public consequence of obviously the shame, the embarrassment of the fact that I have used these, and it has come to light that I have used these terms, which would be the same for other officers involved. But I take that.
Your Honour, since the witness invited correction,
Yep.
I will provide the correction.
Yep.
The issue to do with the usage of inappropriate language has made its way partly through the disciplinary process, but judicial review has been sought by Mr. Rolfe in respect of that, and so the matter is currently in the hands of the Supreme Court. And that's in abeyance, in turn, pending issues to do with the status of Mr. Rolfe's employment.
So, may I just ask,
Yes.
is it publicly known what action is the subject of judicial review now in abeyance?
I think that depends on how well informed the particular parts of the community are.
Is it capable of being
Yes.
publicly known? Could
Yes,
you
it
tell
is.
us what the result was then, please?
The proceedings, as I understand it, and I'll stand to be corrected, made their way partly through a hearing within the police force, and on the issue of whether disciplinary action could be taken in respect of the text messages which had been discovered as a result of being seized. That issue was placed before the Supreme Court on judicial review.
So no decision's been made?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
I hope that assists, Your Honour.
Sorry.
You're
There's so much,
out of the police force.
yeah, so much legal stuff going on.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
gets
sure.
mixed up.
Yeah, it's hard for you to
Thank
keep up to date with it, I can imagine. But Jimmy Kirstenfeld said in evidence here, we've never heard any Alice Springs members or IRT members use those sorts of racist comments. You obviously disagree with James Kirstenfeld.
I disagree. Not calling him a liar at all. I disagree.
No need to, but you disagree.
I disagree. I've heard those comments.
And Mr. Donaldson said that he'd never heard Mr. Bowens use racist terms or engage in racist conduct. I think you agree with that.
I would like that makes sense to me. I am not with Constable Donaldson all the time, but yes, I agree with. I've never heard him. I've never heard Sergeant Bowens speak in that way at all, and something that I didn't get opportunity to address really quickly with the text messages. I think it shows that the first time I recognised that he wrote that word in that text messages was as part of this evidence. I believe at the time I thought he said bush cops as I was talking about bush cops, and then I went back to talking about bush cops. So I haven't ever heard Sergeant Bowens talk in that way.
Yeah, but it was in writing. You say misapprehended what you read. Is that what you said?
Yes, because it was so much unlike him.
Yeah, okay. Assistant Commissioner Dole gave evidence to this inquest that he had no time for police who hold racist opinions about Aboriginal people, and that they shouldn't have the power of a police officer in the Northern Territory. Do you agree, disagree, or do you have some other response?
Pardon, can you please read the statement that he said again?
He has no time for police who are racist, and people who hold racist opinions about Aboriginal people shouldn't be given the power of a police officer in the Northern Territory. Agree, disagree, or do you have some other response?
No, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. I think there needs to be a separation between using racist language and being racist. Obviously, both are unacceptable, but on a scale, I would say they are different, in my view.
Racist actions are informed by attitude, are they not?
I would accept that.
Racist comments are an exhibition of an attitude. Agreed?
Can be.
What is exchanged frankly and confidentially between police is likely to be a better and more accurate indication of an attitude than their public face.
Your Honour, I object to that.
Do you agree or disagree?
Object to that question.
On what basis?
Well, on what basis can he comment that what he, others, or conversations which he is not party to, have conversations?
That's okay. Let's limit it to his own conversations and exchanges.
Um,
You ask the question.
I'll ask something different. I think your position is that none of your actions were driven by or motivated by a belief that Aboriginal people should be treated differently and worse than non-Aboriginal people. Is that your position?
It got a bit confusing for me, but I believe you're saying that I am saying that I didn't treat anyone differently based on their race?
Yes.
Yes.
Or based on their Aboriginality in particular.
Yes.
Do you understand the concept of structural racism?
Not enough to comment on intelligently.
Going back to an answer that you gave earlier today about the lives of Aboriginal people in these areas around here, and how and why it is that their life circumstances are so different from ordinary suburban white Australians' conditions. You were asked, is it their fault or not? And you ultimately expressed the opinion it was because of decisions made by Australia, the Australian government.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So by that, without getting into political science too much, you'd agree that many of the policies that impact on Aboriginal people in Central Australia are policies of both levels of government, both the Commonwealth and the Territory.
I believe so, yes.
The police are part of government, are they not?
Yes.
Attitudes amongst police, whether consciously racist or not, do you accept could and indeed have had negative impacts as well as positive impacts on Aboriginal Australians?
Sorry, I'm
I'll start
thinking.
again.
I'm thinking. Can you please ask the question again? This is in a
Oh.
territory way above my once constable position, but I'm willing to play.
But you also have had to think carefully about this concept of racism
Yes.
and examine yourself, right? Even if you did not consciously think that what you were doing was done to disadvantage the people you were dealing with because they were Aborigines or Aboriginal people, do you accept that what you did may well have made life more difficult for them than other people who are not Aboriginal people?
I don't know if I could answer that question because if it was subconscious, I wouldn't know about it.
Yep.
I haven't had, I believe I was removed from the police force before the unconscious bias training was put in. So I don't actually believe I've had any real unconscious bias training. I'm aware of what it means. I don't know enough to answer that question in any form of helpful answer.
Do you accept that expressing racist comments is dehumanising the individuals?
I accept that it can be.
Normally would be.
I accept that it can be. I do accept that it can be.
Apart from your disciplinary action, now on hold because of legal steps, are you aware of any officer, any constable, any police officer at all in the Northern Territory having been disciplined in any way for their use of racist language?
Believe the text messages in entirety were accessed in October or November of 2020, at which points they started to go through the text messages. During that time, a number of officers who have now been involved were, I believe they were promoted when the text messages were released publicly, externally from the police force at the start of this Coronial. I believe there was a rush of remedial guidance given to all officers involved.
They're the authors of the racist terms in the messages.
I believe so. I could
Okay.
be corrected, but that is my understanding of what has occurred.
Righto. Apart from remedial action, has anyone been penalised for their use of such terms?
I am not aware of any penalisation or official discipline in regard to that language.
What about outside the context of the text messages that are the subject of this line of questioning? Just language in the muster room, language in the patrol car, language on the street?
I'm not aware of any.
None.
I am not aware of any, no.
Not that you know of.
None that I know of.
Mr. Rolfe, when you applied to join the Northern Territory Police, you remembered, as you filled in the form, having applied to join the Queensland Police, right?
It was too long ago for me to remember filling out these forms. I honestly just cannot recall.
You remembered filling in the form to join up the police in Western Australia, didn't you?
I know that I
I object to this as overlapping. We've been through these forms twice now. Unless there's a special specific aspect,
Okay.
if a learned friend can assure me of that, then I don't object. But
So
if we-
I'll cut to the chase.
Thank you.
When you gave evidence here on Monday that you simply made a mistake when you filled in these forms, I think several different mistakes,
yes.
you were suggesting that you were not being deliberately misleading.
Correct.
Like counsel assisting, I also suggest that you knew that you were being deliberately misleading in several different respects when you filled in your form to join up the Northern Territory Police.
I disagree.
And I suggest that your answers to Dr. Dwyer on this topic, and now to me, are deliberate, conscious, false statements on oath. What do you say about that?
I disagree.
I'd suggest that you know that this is false, but you are prepared to brazen out your position, aren't you?
I would need that asked in a different way.
You're prepared to
I
keep
would-
going with it, even though you know everybody who's putting these questions to you about this allegedly false evidence will say different. You're not going to change your position.
I'm not going to change my position.
And what I suggest is that there have been other occasions when you gave false and deliberately misleading answers to your superiors about your actions when you were a serving police officer.
Well, I object to that.
So I'll be specific.
Thank you.
You gave false, deliberately false and misleading explanations when you were asked to explain your conduct in relation to the young person CW. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Disagree.
You gave false evidence on oath in Malcolm Ryder's court case too, didn't you?
Disagree.
You gave false explanations to police who were supervising you when you were asked to explain your conduct in relation to a young man called Antonio Woods.
Disagree.
And you gave false explanations to your supervisors in relation to your dealings with Luke Madrill.
Disagree.
When you were interviewed by Ms. Shorten, you told her that you've been the subject of a number of investigations, didn't you?
I accept that.
You told her, I've had a number of complaints against the police for uses of force. Every one of those has been investigated and I've been cleared, didn't you?
Yes, that was my belief at the time.
I've never been found to have been involved with misconduct. You said that, didn't you?
Yes, and I still think that. No, yeah, I believe that at the time.
I have got more complaints probably than a lot of other police officers, you said, but I am a more active police officer than others. Agreed?
That was my belief at the time, but turns out that was an incorrect statement in comparison to other police officers.
In any event, that's what you said to Ms. Short, right?
Correct.
You said in this interview with Ms. Shorten, I get a lot of high priority arrest targets who deal with lawyers and they know how to play the game and make the complaint. Agree?
Agree.
Are any of the names that I just mentioned to you people that you were referring to in that part of your interview?
No, I wasn't referring to anyone specific.
Which lawyers were you referring to?
One in mind, one that comes to mind is Sophie Trevor.
So you're talking about a young woman who worked for Naja.
Yes, I believe it's been spoken about before that she developed a reputation for making a large number of complaints against police.
How many did she make about you?
I don't have that information.
You want to suggest that of all the ones that have been the subject of evidence at this inquest? One. What do you say about that?
I believe there's a process where a complaint can be put in before it becomes accepted into a blue team, per se. So there was a number of others that I can recall because it was mentioned at the station.
It was the subject of discussion amongst your colleagues that a solicitor at Naja was generating false complaints. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Do you understand that lawyers act on instructions?
Yes, I do.
Do you see the difference between a lawyer putting in complaints on behalf of people who tell them what has happened on the one hand, and lawyers who are playing a game by generating false complaints? Do you understand there is a difference?
Pardon, say that again.
There is a difference, I suggest, between a lawyer who acts on the instructions of a client and lodges a complaint on the one hand, and a lawyer acting unethically, playing a game and simply generating complaints for the sake of it.
I object to that.
Appreciate there is a difference.
I object to that. There's a third category, of course, that the learned friend hasn't put, and that is a lawyer acting on instructions who puts forward false complaints because they are false to the knowledge of the person who gives the instructions. And that should be put into the equation as well.
Mr. Bolton.
I don't regard myself as bound to shape my questions by anything that was just said in that objection, Your Honour. It was not misleading in any way, and the witness is well capable of answering the question, especially now.
And also there's opportunities for further examination by his legal team to clarify any of these issues. But I'll allow the question.
I'm going to withdraw it in light of the objection. Any weight to the answer is likely to be diminished. So, Mr. Rolfe, did you regard the pattern of complaints that was made about you as being part of a game?
No, I did not.
Why did you tell Ms. Shorten that you had a lot of high priority arrest targets who deal with lawyers and they know how to play the game? Why did you say that?
That's a figure of speech.
It was a figure of speech that was meant deliberately to be derogatory of the the lawyers who made complaints about you, right?
I would say it was, in that regard, you'd have to add the details of exaggerated or false complaints.
Mr. Rolfe, one such complaint that Ms. Trafford made about you concerned your conduct in relation to Malcolm Ryder. Do you accept that?
I can accept that.
That's the one in the evidence in this court case about which we've been discussing complaints that was signed by Ms Trevor, who is now deceased. You know that, don't you?
No, I did not know
Sorry,
that.
well, she is.
I had no idea.
So I want to suggest to you that in your dealings with Malcolm Ryder, you deliberately chose not to activate your body-worn footage when you went into the house in order to exercise your powers as a police officer. Is that true or not?
I didn't turn my body worn video off. Oh, no, sorry, I didn't turn my body worn on, correct.
That was not just an oversight, though. On the 11th of January 2018, you decided to interact with the people in that house without filming it, didn't you?
Correct.
In deliberate contravention of specific orders to activate footage in such circumstances. Do you agree?
I'm not sure I agree. I can't recall the specifics of that event so long ago.
By January 2018, there was a standing order that you should activate your body-worn video when you're exercising powers of entry into a person's house. Do you agree?
I accept that.
You decided not to do it on this occasion, didn't you?
I did not activate my body worn video.
Well, is that an answer or is that a way of avoiding my question?
I can't say if I decided or if I forgot.
Well, at that time, you were of the view that it would advantage you not to have your body-worn footage on quite often, right?
And I accept that.
Yeah. Mm. Well, there is no cause to retry Malcolm Ryder in this inquest.
I didn't get the start of the
There
question.
is no reason for any of us to retry Malcolm Ryder in this inquest. He was found not guilty.
Is that a question or
But
are you making
the-
a speech? Object.
Mr Abbott,
Yes, Your Honour.
please allow the examination to continue uninterrupted unless there is a specific objection that is significant, because this is a senior member of the bar who is conducting a careful examination, having followed these matters for now over a year. Is it close to 2 years? He's allowed to take his time in developing the question. Please continue, Mr Bolton.
When did you hear first that Judge Borchers found Malcolm Ryder not guilty?
I can't recall.
Was it soon after, days after, weeks after, or a month or more?
Likely soon after.
Was the acquittal the subject of discussion in the muster room, for instance?
Would have been the subject of discussion, but not much.
Ms Zendelli, we know, sent you screenshots of parts of Judge Borch's judgment, did she not?
Correct.
Why do you understand was it that she sent you those screenshots?
That's a question for her.
Or what was the context in which you received them?
They just popped up on my phone. I don't know what I was doing at the time.
Well, did you talk to Ms. Zendele about the fact that she'd been found to have lied in those proceedings?
I would have, but this is 8 years ago.
Yeah,
I can't
okay.
remember my conversations from 8 years ago.
So I'm not asking you for detail, but would you accept that you, her and other friends of yours on active service at Alice Springs Police Station spoke about the fact that Judge Borch has got it wrong?
I accept that.
Did Mr. Bowens engage in these discussions?
I have no recollection of Mr. Bowens engaging in these discussions.
And certainly it seems you didn't tell him officially, according to your evidence this morning.
Correct.
What about unofficially? Did you have some words with him about what you thought about Judge Borch's decision?
I have no recollection of that.
What about anyone in authority at Alice Springs Police Station? Did anyone in authority come down and see you when it became obvious that you'd been criticised as having lied on oath in Alice Springs local court?
I accept that it could have happened, but I have no recollection of it occurring.
There's no need to accept it from me that it could have happened. I have nothing to suggest that it did. But is your best memory that nobody above you in rank came to talk to you about the Malcolm Ryder acquittal?
Yes, that is my recollection.
Nobody came to talk to you about a finding of a judge that you had lied on oath?
Yes, that's my recollection.
Irrespective of the judgment of the court, is it correct to say that ultimately it was determined by the police complaints mechanism that there was insufficient evidence to sustain an allegation against you of excessive use of force against Malcolm Ryder?
I believe so.
The only form of criticism that you received in relation to the Malcolm Ryder incident was remedial advice for not activating your body-worn camera. Is that correct or incorrect?
I believe that's correct.
You have given evidence that you disregarded His Honour's decision because of expressions and phrases that he used in a number of court cases other than Malcolm Ryder's. Is that right?
That was part of what made up that thought.
Did anybody at Alice Springs Police Station talk to you about the fact that it was Judge Borch's decision and therefore unworthy of regard?
I believe I've answered this question before. He was known amongst the station for saying outrageous statements. That, on the addition of me being in the location at the time, knowing what actually did occur, I was not concerned about his judgment in regard to the final outcome.
So again, I would like you to just precisely listen to the question. When people talk to you about this decision, did other police talk about it being a decision of Judge Borch's and therefore not that serious?
Yes, I believe words to that effect were said.
All of us have watched footage of the Araluen Park incident, and you know what I'm referring to, don't you?
Yes.
That incident did not come to the attention of the PSC or anyone in authority until after Kumanjayi died. Do you agree?
I am not in a position to say. I believe it was cleared by a sergeant, and then I believe use of forces have to be cleared additionally by a superintendent. So depending on your level of position of authority, if that's what you said.
What I'm suggesting is that it was not the subject of a complaint by either of the participants or anyone on their behalf or any member of the public. It came to light as a result of reviewing your handset, your telephone.
I accept that.
In 2020, to your knowledge, the PSC determined that the footage did not match what had been described on the use of force narrative.
I'd accept it. I'm not sure when I became aware of that or if I even have. I have received a large correspondence from PSA over the years after the arrest.
Have you received any form of remedial advice or any disciplinary action as a consequence of what's depicted in the footage?
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Dr. Freckleton if that was included in the bundle.
Well, you might as well give the answer then, Dr. Freckleton, if Your Honour doesn't mind.
Mr. Rolfe was advised on the 30th of January of last year that he would be receiving remedial advice in relation to the 10 operational safety principles, the tactical options model, minimisation of force, and the need for requalification in respect of defensive tactics training. But he hasn't received that advice because his employment with the Northern Territory Police Force terminated before he could have that advice administered.
So accepting all that to be the case, as it obviously is, has anyone in authority in the police force of the Northern Territory spoken to you and expressed the opinion to you personally that the way you dealt with those two women, as depicted in that footage, was unacceptable?
No.
Even informally?
No one has used the word unacceptable. Obviously, people have used, some have said that it could be dealt with differently, obviously, but nothing to the point of believing that it would be excessive.
Have you been disciplined for recording the body-worn footage onto your mobile telephone?
I could send this over to Dr. Fragodan again.
That's part of the investigation that has been interrupted by the application for judicial review.
What about before you made a judicial an application for judicial review in the Supreme Court? Did any officer talk to you about the way you filmed the body-worn video onto your own phone?
Yes, obviously, when that became apparent, the attitude from the majority is that obviously, as I agree, it is unprofessional, and that's their view as well.
Your attitude to what you did is demonstrated by the audio of the footage that you took of the computer screen, I suggest, when you were heard laughing. What do you say about that?
I have nothing to say about that. That was unprofessional, and I shouldn't have done it.
Do you want to say anything publicly to the world, and in particular to those two gentlemen, about the way you reacted on the footage?
No, I don't.
On the 1st of April 2019, you dealt with a young man called CW, correct?
I accept that date.
You're aware that after his arrest, that detainee made complaints to the people who were in the vicinity of his arrest.
Yes.
And you are aware, I take it, that when he was interviewed by police following his arrest, he made similar complaints.
I believe so, yes.
In the electronic record of interview, he said, the coppers just plant me, grab me by the hair, just bang, 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 and just the rock. I didn't get treated right when I got arrested. Agree?
Do I agree that's what he said?
That's what he said.
I accept that.
And I want to suggest to you that when you were engaged in the pursuit of CW, you turned your body-worn video off after you initiated the pursuit.
Yes, correct.
And you turned it back on again after he had been detained, didn't you?
If that's the evidence, I don't know if it is. But if it is, I accept it. It'll be on my body worn video. I can't recall.
When this matter was investigated, following upon complaint, you were asked to give an explanation about your body-worn video being turned off. Agreed?
Agreed.
In your official response, you said, I lost sight of him and turned my body-worn video off as it was giving my position away due to the light and sound that it emits. This was a tactical consideration. Agreed? That's what you
Agreed.
said.
Agreed. I accept that.
You said this. Ideally, my body-worn camera would have been on covert mode, but as I'm sure you are aware, there are two ways to turn your body-worn camera onto covert mode. One of which is to access evidence.com on your iPad and enter into the settings. And as long as your iPad is currently synced up to your camera and in your possession, and change it that way. I'm not able to do this while running after an offender. The other way is to hold down a small button for approximately 10 seconds. This is also difficult on the run, and further, you cannot tell if it is activated once complete. You said all of that, didn't you?
I accept that.
You said, in addition, as far as I'm aware, section 14A brackets B of the Surveillance Act prohibits police from using body-worn video if not overt, correct?
I accept that. I said that.
As we saw from the document that was tendered earlier this week about how one activates covert mode on the Axon body-worn camera, as you say, back then it was done by depressing a button for approximately 10 seconds, correct?
I accept that.
The button was the volume button, right?
I can't recall. I haven't used a body worn for 4 years.
When you gave evidence here earlier this week, you explained that you hadn't really figured out how to turn your body-worn video camera onto stealth mode, didn't you?
Yes, correct.
You knew how to turn it onto stealth mode, though, didn't you?
When I was writing that statement, it looks like I did. I can't recall ever having achieved that.
Are you saying that you tried to turn your body-worn camera onto stealth mode on a number of occasions prior to the chase of CW, but you couldn't ever actually get it to do it? Is that what you're saying?
I believe we've had some attempts in the muster room trying to figure out how to do it, yes.
That's not what you said to your supervisors when you were asked for an explanation, though, was it?
I have been asked multiple questions of incidents from over 8 years ago. My answers are going to change due to memory, but I can't give you any more information. I've been in the box for 4 days. I've been in the box for 4 days, I don't know how to help you out.
Okay, so it looks like the witness is tired. Your
Yes. At the end of yesterday, he wasn't. He gave me a thumbs up and he said he was ready to go, but he is tired now and we'll adjourn till tomorrow, 9 o'clock.
Hmm?